Yes, hi. Hi, Shravan.
Hi,
Good.
sir. Good morning.
All right. So, what did we discussed in the last session? We discussed the custom summary, right?
Custom summary was start.
Okay. Do you have any questions in the custom summary?
And those,
Hmm?
those no, sir. ये करो जो
Hmm.
है ना वो लास्ट में
ठीक है.
कुर्तो कुर्तो इस और ये वो एक बार एक्सप्लेन करो.
अच्छा. Yeah. What should I explain?
That कुर्तो is यूने
Actually, आपका वॉइस ब्रेक हो रहा है.
हेलो
Hmm.
सर that यूने कुर्तो से
अच्छा हाँ,
हाँ
स्क्यूनेस.
हाँ,
वो स्टैटिस्टिक्स का पार्ट है. वो अभी अभी आज सीखने वाले हैं वो.
ठीक है चलेगा फिर.
See, now in today's session, we are going to start with the statistics part, right? Now, statistics is divided into two types. First is descriptive statistics, and second is inferential statistics, right? One is descriptive, second is inferential. Second is inferential. Now, in descriptive statistics, we have measure of central tendency, then we have measure of shape, and measure of height. So in measure of central tendency, we have mean, median, we have mode, then in measure of shape, just a minute. And third is measure of dispersion. So measure of shape may you have kurtosis and skewness. Measure of dispersion may you have range and you have quartiles. Right? This is your part. So yes, this sums up your descriptive statistics. And there is another statistics part, which is inferential statistics, which we'll discuss afterwards. Today we'll discuss this thing, entire thing. Now see, what is central tendency? What is central tendency?
It will give the center like that.
Hmm. Right? Yes, Divesh, what is central tendency?
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by central tendency?
Central tendency. So no idea.
Central tendency means it gives idea about the center of the data, right?
Okay. So I was few lectures absent. That's why I don't know.
नहीं ये पूरा न्यू टॉपिक है.
Okay, sir. I will refer that to your online recorded session.
But still this is new topic. उसका और
Okay, sir.
उसका कुछ रिलेशन नहीं है,
Okay, okay, sir. Sorry, sir.
right? Now see, uh, what is central tendency? It gives idea about the center of the data. What do you mean by center of the data? Suppose आपके पास ये अमाउंट स्पेंड कॉलम है, राइट? अमाउंट स्पेंड कॉलम, तो उसका आप एवरेज निकाल रहे हो, मतलब मीन निकाल रहे हो. अमाउंट स्पेंड, let's say average of amount spent column. What is that? It is 6 at 12.82. Then we have median. What is median? 6 to 1. And we have mode. So what is mode? तो देखो ये find करके what is the why we are calculating mean median mode of the data, उससे क्या फायदा होता है आपको? So you should understand the difference between, or you should understand why we calculate mean. What is the definition of mean, median, and mode, right? So what is mean?
Average divided by total number.
But
The sum of all numbers.
ये तो नॉर्मल फॉर्मूला हो गया ना.
Yeah.
इससे कुछ मिल रहा है आपको? You're not understanding anything.
Yes.
देखो, mean formula is mean. It is a number which represents whole set of data. मतलब ये जो 6 at 12.12 है, 12.82, ये क्या करता है? अमाउंट स्पेंट जो कॉलम है, अमाउंट स्पेंट इन रुपीज, इट रिप्रेजेंट्स द होल सेट ऑफ डेटा, राइट? मतलब अमाउंट स्पेंट का पूरा सेट है, वो रिप्रेजेंट क्या नंबर करता है? 6 at 12.82, राइट? बट इसका ड्रॉबैक क्या है? देखो, व्हाट इज द ड्रॉबैक ऑफ मीन? सी नाउ, सपोज I have a data 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7. इसका मैं मीन निकाल रहा हूँ, फिर एवरेज निकाल रहा हूँ। वो एवरेज कितना आ रहा है? 4, right? What do you mean by this 4? Can I say 4 is representing entire or whole set of data? Yes, easily I can say कि मतलब 4 ये set का representation correct है. But see now, if I add some number outlier, if I add some outlier, now if I calculate the average of this entire data, now is it representing 25.33? ये correct representation है क्या इसका?
No.
So outlier के साथ में it is failing. It is not giving us the proper result, right? I'll give you one article. Descriptive stats. You read about this. I'll take a break for 5-10 minutes. Read about this. And once you're done with this, we'll discuss this again. This one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, is it done?
Yeah.
See now. See, that is the reason. When do you have outliers in the data? When do whenever you have outliers in the data, your mean is not the correct representation of the central tendency, right? So what should we use now? We should use median. Now see, median for this data will always be will always give you correct representation, which is 5, right? So even though you have outliers in the data, median is the correct representation, right? So median is the correct representation for the for what? For the data
Outlier.
which is having outliers, right? Right. So ये हो गया median. अब मोड क्या है? मोड, व्हाट इज मोड? हाँ, तो median का description we have not seen, right? What is median is? Median is the middle most value in a sorted data. The middlemost value in a sorted data, or it is a 50th percentile of the whole data. It is middlemost value in a sorted data, or 50th percentile of the whole data, entire data, right? So if you if your data is not sorted, you have to sort it first. Find the median. If for example 1, 3, 2, 4, 7, 9. अब इसका मिडल मोस्ट वैल्यू कौन सा है? और लेट्स से 9, 5. हाँ, तो अभी मिडल मोस्ट वैल्यू कौन सा लग रहा है?
2, 4.
2 और 4 लग रहा है, राइट? 2 और 4. अब अगर इफ यू हैव इवन नंबर्स, यू हैव टू टेक एवरेज ऑफ द टू नंबर्स जो मिडल में. तो 2 और 4 का एवरेज क्या है? 3, राइट?
3.
तो मीडियन क्या रहेगा? 3. बट सी, बिकॉज ये डेटा सॉर्टेड नहीं है ना, यू हैव नॉट सॉर्टेड दिस. तो 3.5 है. कैसे 3.5 है? यू हैव टू सॉर्ट दिस डेटा फर्स्ट. 1, 2, 3, देन 4, देन 5 एंड 9. तो अभी देखो 3 एंड 4 जो है उसका जो मीन रहेगा वो है 3.5. तो 3.5 मीडियन है, राइट? So you have to sort your data in order to find the median. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ मिडल मोस्ट वैल्यू है. मिडल मोस्ट वैल्यू इन अ सॉर्टेड डेटा है, राइट? इज क्लियर?
Yes, sir.
Now what is mode? So consider the same data. Consider the same data. What is mode? Mode is nothing but the number which uh, which is repeating majority of the time, which is repeating majority number of Nice. Numbers, which is representing majority number of child. That is mode. Right? तो यहाँ पे 3 दो बार आ रहा है ना, तो mode will be your 3 because 3 2 times आ रहा है, उसकी frequency 2 है. Let's say if you have another data 1 2 2 3 3 4 5 and 4. अब इसमें मोड क्या रहेगा? Yes. What is the mode in this?
will be
Multiple modes है यहाँ पे. You have multiple modes. टू थ्री फोर बिकॉज 2 दो बार है, 3 भी 2 बार है और 4 भी 2 बार है. So this data that you have is unimodal data, and this data that you have is bimodal data. Bimodal data or multimodal, not bimodal. Bi मतलब दो ही mode. This is multimodal data, right? So this is how you get the central tendency. Now we will see the range and quartiles. इसमें क्या है, रेंज क्वार्टाइल्स है और वेरिएंस है. वेरिएंस you have standard deviation, right? You have range, quartile, variance, standard deviation. All right. So now let's understand measure of dispersion. So what do you mean by dispersion? Yes.
no idea, sir.
See what is dispersion is. Range of a distribution of data about an expected value or extent to which distribution is stretched. मतलब उसका spread वो दे रहा है, spread, right? मतलब एक डेटा है, उसका स्प्रेड कितना है, कितना वाइडली स्प्रेड है वो. So dispersion means the distance of the scattered data from the mean or average value of the data, right? So how do you find the dispersion then, in which we have a range? So range क्या है, maximum minus minimum, simple. मतलब मेरे पास एक डेटा है, उसका मिनिमम वैल्यू 1 है और मैक्सिमम वैल्यू 100 है, तो इसका रेंज कितना हो गया? रेंज हो गया 99, right? Range will be your 99, right? Then you have second, which is quartiles. Now this is very important, quartiles. Now why it is important is, we already have discussed. Do you remember quartiles?
Yes.
Suppose, consider this is your data, right? You divide your data into 4 equal parts.
Yeah. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4.
You divide the data into four equal parts. So four equal parts मतलब 25, 25, 25, 25, right? तो फर्स्ट 25% जो डेटा है उसको क्वार्टाइल 1 Q1, then first 50% of the data is your quartile 2 Q2, first 75% of the data is your quartile 3 Q3, and all data मतलब
100 up to 100.
it is Q4, right? मतलब ये जो है सपोज ये चार इक्वल पार्ट्स है, कंसिडर दिस फोर इक्वल पार्ट्स, कंसिडर एज दिस फोर इक्वल पार्ट्स, राइट? सो ये जो है इसमें ये Q1 बनेगा, ये Q2 बनेगा, ये Q3 बनेगा और ये Q4 बनेगा, राइट? द रीजन व्हाई वी डू दिस इज इससे आपको आउटलायर्स का आइडिया आता है. फॉर एन एग्जांपल, लेट्स से Q4 का जो साइज है वो बहुत हाई है. एक्सक्यूज मी. Q4 का जो साइज है वो सबसे हाई है. इसका मतलब क्या है कि मैक्सिमम डेटा पॉइंट्स
Side to Q4.
आर इन द quartile 4 region, right? Maximum data points are in the quartile 4 region, Q4 region. या फिर Q1 is very high and sorry Q1 is very high and Q2, Q3, Q4 सेम है. मतलब Q2 का रेंज जो है दो वो है सपोज 30, ये है 34 और ये है लेट्स से 32 और ये है ये 123. इसका मतलब क्या है? मैक्सिमम डेटा पॉइंट Q1 में है और देयर might be chance of what? Of outliers in the quartile 1 region. There might be chance of outliers in the quartile 1 region, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
This is how we have the quartiles. So based on the quartiles also, there are two types of distribution. अगर एक आप नॉर्म मतलब एक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन प्लॉट कर रहे हो, विल नॉट डिस्कस इन मच डेप्थ नाउ, सिंपल रखते हैं इसको. एक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है, अगर इसका सेंट्रल टेंडेंसी मीन है तो सेंटर में मीन है, ये सेंट्रल लाइन क्या है? मीन. तो वो क्वार्टाइल नहीं देता है. क्वार्टाइल का ग्राफ अगर देखोगे आप, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन क्वार्टाइल का, दिस इज आल्सो वन ऑफ द मेजर डिफरेंस. यू कैन एक्सपेक्ट दिस इन बेसिक इंटरव्यू फॉर योर स्टैटिस्टिक्स. इसका मेजर ऑफ सेंट्रल टेंडेंसी इज क्वार्टाइल्स का मीडियन. बिकॉज सी क्वार्टाइल्स क्या है? डिवाइड योर डेटा इनटू फोर इक्वल पार्ट्स. तो ये डेटा को मिडल में कट कर रहे तो ये क्या होगा? Q2 होगा. और Q2 क्या है आपका?
Median.
मीडियन. So if you see a graph for quartile distribution देखो, ये डिस्पर्शन में सेंट्रल पॉइंट क्या है? हमेशा वो क्या रहेगा? मीन रहेगा. बट क्वार्टाइल्स डिस्पर्शन और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन आप देखोगे उसमें सेंट्रल क्या है? व्हाट इज देयर इन द सेंटर?
Median.
मीडियन always. So remember this point. Measure of central tendency is median in terms of quartile, and measure of central tendency is mean in terms of standard deviation. So we are going to discuss the standard deviation as well in this point. So what you can do is I'll give you an interview question or homework question. I always prefer that you should explore something on your own as well, right? So that it becomes interesting.
Yes.
So you have to read about quartiles. रीड मतलब सिर्फ वैसे बेसिक पॉइंट मत रीड करो जो सारे क्या बोलते मतलब सबको पता है कि डिवाइड योर डेटा इनटू 4 इक्वल पार्ट्स, 4 क्वार्टाइल से IQR फॉर्मूला है, वो सब है, वो मत करो। आप ऐसा कुछ पॉइंट निकालो उसमें से कि जो आपको लग रहा है यूनिक है। फॉर एग्जांपल दिस माइट बी द केस कि सबको नहीं पता होगा ये, एंड यू शुड ऑलवेज रेफर टू प्रॉपर रिसोर्स। मतलब जो इजी मिल रहा है, जो इजी समझ में आ रहा है। I also do this thing, right? Now onwards, I'm trying to follow this. मैं क्या करता हूँ, suppose I want to read about quarters, so what I do is जो सबसे easy resource है, जो कम words में explain किया quarters, I go to that and I read about that, right? But ये जो मुझे समझ में आ रहा है, जो जो मुझे input मिल रहा है, वो तो सबको पता है already. What we should target is we should target the main resource direct. मतलब रेफरेंस बुक फॉर एन एग्जांपल। टेक्स्ट बुक और रेफरेंस बुक में क्या फर्क है? इफ यू स्टडी फ्रॉम रेफरेंस बुक तो समझ में नहीं आएगा स्टार्टिंग में, बट आपको एक ही बार सीखना होगा ये कॉर्टेल्स कॉन्सेप्ट, एक ही बार सीखना होगा, हमेशा वही कॉन्सेप्ट फिर से नहीं सीखना होगा। तो इट्स ऑलवेज सजेस्टेड दैट यू शुड फॉलो द प्रॉपर रिसोर्सेज। वेल दिस इज एक्सेप्टेबल कि ये थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट लगेगा स्टार्टिंग, बट यू शुड follow the proper resource, right? Now let's watch this video. Let's try to understand what is quantiles and percentiles. See, this is a very beautiful
The
channel.
quantile function in R.
Follow this channel for any machine learning concept, anything. It's very interesting. See now. Let's watch this.
It is StatQuest. Hello, I'm Josh Starmer and welcome to StatQuest. StatQuest is brought to you by the friendly folks in the genetics department at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Today we're going to be talking about quantiles and percentiles, and they're going to be clearly explained. I thought putting this StatQuest together was going to be super easy, but doing a little research sent me down a crazy rabbit hole. Pretty much every web page I looked at had a slightly different explanation. Part of the problem is that there's a difference between how the word quantile is defined and how quantiles are used in practice. The other problem is that there's a ton of different ways to calculate quantiles. The quantile function in R alone has 9 different methods. Let's start by talking about the strict definition of quantile, and then we'll move on and talk about how the word is used in practice. If you can recognize the definition, you can skip it and move on to something more useful. We'll start by measuring expression for a gene. Then we measure expression for another gene. We measured expression from 15 genes total. This is the median value. 50% of the genes have higher expression, and 50% of the genes have lower expression. Technically speaking, the median is a quantile because it splits the data into groups that contain the same number of data points. In this example, there are 7 data points below the line and 7 data points above the line.
What we have is there are 7 data points below, 7 data points above. So ये technically median हो गया, right? Median is the quantile because it split data into groups that contain the same number of data points, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes this quantile is median, label as 0.5, it splits into half, right? And you should remember कि I'll suggest you to make a notebook, right? अभी क्या करो, अभी statistics चालू हो गया ना, तो forget about Python now, create one notebook जिसमें stats के concept आप लिखना चालू करो, right? So how should you start is there are 2 types of statistics. One is inferential, one is descriptive. डिस्क्रिप्टिव अपन स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं, उसमें मीन मीडियन मोड का एग्जांपल दे सकते हैं, एंड
ठीक
व्हाई मीन इज फेलिंग, ऐसा सारा एक नोटबुक एक पेज में पूरा ऐड करो.
ठीक है.
Second देखो, suppose if somebody asks you in the interview what is quartile, what is median, so what you should do is, rather than सिर्फ line में explanation देने के, instead of giving explanation in line, you should draw this diagram, right? You should draw this diagram, and ये diagram निकाल के if you are explaining, and that becomes very impressive, right? तो ऐसे आपको आंसर देना है इंटरव्यू में, नॉट लाइक जस्ट मीडियन इज द मिडल मोस्ट वैल्यू इन अ सर्टेन डेट. You should not give like this. You should technically explain this, right?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes this quantile, the median, is labeled 0.5 since it splits the data in half, and sometimes it's labeled 50% since 50% of the data is above it and 50% is below it. The median value is 4.5. Thus, the 50% or 0.5 quantile value is 4.5. To summarize this first point, the median is a quantile because it splits the data into equal-sized groups. This is called the 0.5 quantile or the 50% quantile. Regardless of which notation is correct, you're likely to see both of them in the wild. So let's just roll with it and not get too bent out of shape over the nomenclature. Now we've added two more lines. Together with the first line, they divide the data into 4 equally sized groups. These new lines are quantiles because they divide the data into equally sized groups. This one is called the 0.25 or 25% quantile because a quarter or 25% of the points are less than it. The 25% or 0.25 quantile is 2.5. This one is called the 0.75 or 75% quantile because 3/4 or 75% of the points are less than it. The 75% or 0.75 quantile is 7.3. In general, quantiles are just the lines that divide data into equally sized groups. At least, that's the technical definition. And technically speaking, percentiles are just quantiles that divide the data into 100 equally sized groups. However, in practice, the terminology is much more flexible. Even though this dataset isn't large enough to be divided into 100 groups, we still call the median, or the 50th quantile, the 50th percentile. And this is called the 75th percentile. And this is called the 25th percentile. Often, the terms quantile and percentile are used when we divide each data point into its own group. Since no values are less than this one at the bottom, it's called the 0% quantile or the 0th percentile. This data point is the 1 divided by 15 equals 7% quantile or the 7th percentile. I use 1 divided by 15 because there's one data point of the 15 that are less than it. This data point is the 3 divided by 15 or 20% quantile or the 20th percentile, etc., etc., etc. Calculating quantiles and percentiles is just a matter of finding out how many values are less than the value you're interested in. One last thing before we move on. So far, I've shown you one way to calculate the quantiles and percentiles. However, there are many more. R's quantile function provides 9 different ways to calculate quantiles.
R programming language, वो Python जैसी ही एक programming language है that we use to do the statistical calculation, but it's not used nowadays. तो R के इसमें quantile function है, जैसे Python में quantile है.
हाँ.
So we also have quantile.
each one resulting in slightly different results. What this means is that if your data set is small, don't put too much stock in the quantiles, since they can change a lot from method to method and sample to sample. However, when your data set is large, then all of the methods give fairly similar results. Now that we know what quantiles and percentiles are, we can talk about quantile-quantile plots and quantile normalization, which I'll cover in separate StatQuests, and they'll come out next week and the week after that. I'm going to do a whole series on quantiles because I think they're pretty interesting and you see them a lot.
Right.
Hooray!
ये तो हो गया. Now let's see this because this is widely used in the machine
Draw a
learning.
graph, draw a line.
So there is one plot which we have not studied, which is known as QQ plot. Data visualization में QQ plot. Let's try to understand what is QQ plot. इससे भी आपका ये बेसिक है लीनियर रिग्रेशन का. राइट, मतलब मशीन लर्निंग का जो बेसिक एल्गोरिथम है वो है ये, मतलब इसका फाउंडेशन है. नाउ सी,
Tell me if you think it's fine, StatQuest. Hello, I'm Josh Starmer and welcome to StatQuest. Today we're going to be talking about quantile-quantile plots. These are called QQ plots sometimes, and they're going to be clearly explained. This StatQuest assumes you already know what a quantile is. If you don't, no big deal. Just check out the StatQuest on quantiles and percentiles, and then you can watch this one and it'll make a lot more sense. We'll start with this data set, where we measured expression in 15 genes total. One question we might have is this data normally distributed? A QQ plot will help answer that question. Step 1. Give each point its own quantile. Step 2. Get yourself a normal curve. Any normal curve will do. Step 3. Add the same number of quantiles to the curve as you created for the data. That is to say, there are 15 lines dividing the data into equal-sized groups. And there are 15 lines dividing the normal curve into equal-sized groups. For the normal curve, equal-sized groups means that there is an equal probability of observing a value within each group. This means that groups on the edge must be wider to account for the lower probability of observing a value out there. And groups in the middle are narrower since there is a higher probability of observing a value in that region. Step 4. Now plot your QQ graph. A QQ graph has two axes, one for the quantiles that we generated from our data set, and one for the quantiles we generated from the normal distribution. We'll start with the smallest quantile in our data set. This quantile is at 0.6 in our data set, and so we'll draw a dotted line on the QQ plot to indicate that location. Then we draw a vertical line representing the position of the smallest quantile in the normal distribution. This quantile is at negative 1.5, so that's where our vertical dotted line goes. Now, all we do is put a dot where those two lines intersect. Now we move on to the second quantile in the data set that we collected. This one is at 1.1, so we have a horizontal dotted line at 1.1 in our quantile-quantile graph. Then we draw a vertical line at the location of the second quantile in the normal distribution. This quantile is at negative 1.2, so we draw a vertical line at negative 1.2. Then we draw a dot where the two lines intersect. The third quantile in the dataset that we collected is at 1.9, so we draw a horizontal line at 1.9. And the third quantile in our normal distribution is at negative 0.89, so we draw a vertical line at that position. And then we draw a dot where the two lines intersect.
right? तो देखो ऐसे dot.
And then we just do the same thing over and over again for each quantile until we have all the quantiles represented in our quantile-quantile graph. Hooray! Now we've got dots showing where the quantiles from our data set intersected with the quantiles from the normal distribution on our graph. Now we see how well the dots fit a straight line. If the data were normally distributed, most of the points would be on the line. This would mean that both the dataset and the normal distribution have comparable quantiles. In this case, the fit is not awesome, so we should compare the data that we collected to another distribution. What if we compare our data to a uniform distribution? The process is the same.
तो ये यूनिफॉर्म डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन क्या है? नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का क्या रहेगा? वो जो QQ प्लॉट है, स्ट्रेट लाइन के ऊपर ही सारे डॉट आने चाहिए, राइट? So there is a normal distribution. What is normal distribution? See now. I'll just share. अभी ये तो हुआ है, इसके लिए we should start with the normal distribution discussion. See, very easy thing is, what is a distribution? कैसा भी distribution है जो there is a distribution, वो equal ही नहीं रहेगा. मतलब what is equal? Suppose ये mean है, right? This is your mean. So left hand side of the mean, suppose यहाँ पे 70% data accumulated है, और यहाँ पे 30% data accumulated, right? So it is not what we can say, it is not normally distributed, equally spaced, right? Normal distribution क्या है? When there is an equal distribution, 50 to the right, 50 to the left. This is your normal distribution, right? Now let us watch this uniform distribution के बारे में क्या बोल रहा है वो. Let's try to see this.
Step 1, give each point its own quantile. Step 2, get yourself a uniform distribution. Any old uniform distribution will do. Step 3, add the same number of quantiles to the distribution as you created for your data. Step 4, now plot your QQ graph. Just like before, we've got the data quantiles on the y-axis and the distribution quantiles on the x-axis. Now we draw a straight line that goes through the points in the graph. And look, the points are much closer to the line in the QQ plot, indicating that the uniform distribution is a better fit. So if you're ever wondering which distribution matches your data, well, you could use QQ plots to answer that question. Okay, one last thing before we're done. What if we want to compare the original dataset to another one? This second one is much smaller. The new dataset only has 4 quartiles. Quartiles are just quantiles when you only...
Can you see the screen or not? Because मुझे नहीं दिख रहा है कुछ.
Yes sir, yes. अभी stop होगा sir.
Just अभी दिख रहा है ना?
Yes.
only have 4 of them. So we determine 4 quartiles for the original dataset and compare those. And just like we did when we compared the dataset that we gathered to the normal distribution and the uniform distribution, we plot a QQ plot by drawing horizontal and vertical lines representing the quantiles from the 2 datasets that we collected. And where the 2 lines intersect, we draw a dot. And we just repeat this process for each pair of quantiles until we have all the quantiles represented on the graph. Hooray! Now we've got all the quantiles plotted on our QQ graph. Now, add a straight line to determine how similar the distributions are. With just a few quantiles in our plot, it's hard to have a definitive answer about whether or not the 2 datasets have similar distributions. But you get the idea. If we collected more data, we'd have more quantiles and would know more. Hooray! We've made it to the end of another exciting StatQuest. If you like this StatQuest and want to see more of them, please subscribe. And if you have any suggestions for future StatQuests, put them in the comments below. Alright, until next time, quest on!
राइट, इज इट क्लियर नाउ? देखो ये
एक बार
ये प्लेलिस्ट है, ये आप आराम से देख सकते
हाँ,
हो बिकॉज ये
ठीक है।
थोड़ा कभी कभी बहुत एडवांस में लेके जाता है।
हाँ,
सेकंड है ये क्रिश नाइक, ये हिंदी में आपको मिलेगा सब कुछ। दिस आल्सो वेरी गुड, और इसने भी बहुत सारे एग्जांपल दिए हैं। इसका भी मैं एक आई सजेस्ट यू इज व्हाट यू कैन डू इज यू कैन रिमेम्बर द एग्जांपल, मतलब नोट्स निकालो। अभी देखो फॉर एग्जांपल व्हाट वी हैव स्टडीड की क्वांटाइल्स, क्यू क्यू प्लॉट एंड नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन। तो वो जो पूरा लाइन में जैसे एक्सप्लेन किया है ना उसने, आपको एक स्टोरी बनानी है उसकी एक पेज में, so that if somebody asks you कि what is quantile, what is percentile and what is QQ plot, आपको डायरेक्ट स्टोरी लाइन याद आनी चाहिए। फर्स्ट उसने कैसा स्टार्ट किया, वो एग्जांपल स्टार्ट किया राइट, फिर वो क्वांटाइल्स उसने प्लॉट किए, फिर वो क्वांटाइल्स को नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कर्व में प्लॉट किया वर्टिकली।
ओके,
तो ऐसा इंटरसेक्शन करके जो पॉइंट आता है, मतलब इफ यू एक्सप्लेन दिस ना, इट्स वेरी, वो टाइम पे आपका सोल्यूशन है राइट,
yes,
इट्स वेरी वेरी हेल्पफुल। So remember कि first point is you have to watch videos. These two channels are sufficient. Second is you have to create your notes.
yes, sir.
वैसे are you from this background, programming background?
Sir, I completed my graduation in mechanical field, but I know about Java, sir. Java
Hmm.
is there.
ठीक है, that is fine.
So currently I am working in IT industry
Okay, where do you work?
in Mumbai, sir.
In which organization?
Business next,
Sorry.
business next.
Okay. Uh, what is your designation over there?
Sir, I'm a junior engineer as a techno-functional role.
All right, all right. तो सही है, फिर इसमें भी आप ग्रो कर सकते हो ना।
Yes, yes, sir.
हम्म, all right, all right.
Yeah, sir.
चलो, thank you,
Yeah,
bye.
sir. Thank you. Bye bye.